first, we're starting this afternoon talking about the disappearance of Sarah Everard. A police officer has now been arrested but not charged over her disappearance. But it sparked a conversation over the last 24 hours or so about women, men and safety. And I think all of us at some point in time have been advised how we can possibly make life safer for us on a daily basis, especially when walking the streets. Are those conversations that you've had with your girls, Jane?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got my stepdaughter who's now 35, I've got my daughter who's 28, and then I've got my 17-year-old. So we've got all girls. And perhaps in many ways they've had it kind of more than most because, you know, as a journalist over my career, I reported on the Jamie Bulger case when my older daughter was just 1. I reported on Rose West trial when my daughter was 2. So I've come home with quite a lot of anxiety about their safety, not necessarily justified, but, you know, and I've interviewed so many bereaved parents who've been in this awful situation, and they always sort of say, you know, oh, if only this hadn't happened and if only that. And of course there's no guarantees, but as parents you just spend your whole time trying to prepare your kids, and actually both, whether you've got boys or girls, for any eventuality that they might come across in life. And so with my girls, the same that my mum did for me, I'm always, don't get into an empty train carriage on your own. If somebody's walking up behind you late at night, cross the road. Maybe if there's no traffic, walk slightly in the middle of the road so you're not going past dark alleyways. I mean, there's always that balance where you sort of think, I don't want to scare them to death, but I also want to prepare them for what they might come across.
And the reality is, I think what's happened over the last 24 hours is I think a lot of men have realised the checklist that women have to go through on a daily basis. So if I'm out at night, you know, years ago when I would go out clubbing with my friends, it's, OK, 2 of us have to make sure we get in a taxi. When one of us gets out, the other one has to make sure that they're on the phone continuously so we make sure that they've gotten home safely. As you say, it's not getting in a train carriage by yourself. It's not getting on the top of the bus when you're the only person. Don't do that either. And it's also things like making sure, as you say, you're not walking down dark alleys. I remember I was catcalled probably for the very first time, probably 11 or 12, when I was just starting off at secondary school. And you have 30 seconds that young to work out, if I say no to this person, are they going to be OK with that, or are they going to start yelling at me? So how do I stop them from shouting at me? Do I give them a fake number? Do I take their number? It's all these things that women are having to navigate from such a young age that I don't necessarily think that men are aware of. And I don't know, perhaps we shouldn't just be talking about women, how to change their behaviour. We also have to perhaps talk to men about how to make us feel safer when we're on the streets. I mean, your daughter is a teenager, Judi. What sort of things are you saying to her?
Definitely. We're always having these kind of conversations, you know, especially... well, I don't say especially, I think all parents, but because I am a single parent, I feel like I'm constantly like, where are you? Have you got there? Text me. So that anxiety, and even them going back to school now, I feel like that's my anxiety this week. And we have a conversation, I think people need to realise the teenagers now, they are seeing things on TikTok, and even my daughter would say to me, Mum, you know, she knows what areas is a bit more dangerous, or, you know, certain things, videos that are shown on social media, and making, you know, that age group be really aware that these things can happen to them, which I think before they were very much like clouded. So I'm glad we're able to have that conversation. You know, myself, you know, as a grown woman, I remember, you know, I do comedy, so there were times I'd travel quite late by myself, and there was one particular night, you know, in my area, and a guy was on the other side of the road, and I was on the main high road, and I just saw him pull his cap down and come running towards me, and I just, in that moment, what you said, Charlene, is so true. In that 30 seconds, my car was round the corner, and I was like, should I run to my car? But I thought, if I run to my car, I'm in a dark space. So I just stood in front and just like took him straight on. He grabs my hand. I just thought, OK, he's going to mug me. But in my mind, maybe from like my kind of social work background, I just started to have a conversation. Is this what you want to do? Is this what you want to do? Like, take what you want to take. And he just looked me in my eye. I don't know what it was. And he just kind of threw my hand down and walked off. It's not until afterwards I was like, oh, my gosh, did that really happen? But
As a result, you don't walk the streets?
I don't walk late. I don't walk late. I do what you said, what you guys text somebody, you know, even thinking about it makes me feel a bit shaky. But
Gloria, with your kids, is it a conversation that you've had in terms of personal safety?
Well, I was just thinking, in terms of this current situation, I mean, it's so appalling that I was thinking that my grandchildren live near the common, so it puts the fear of God into you in different ways. Also, I live in Kent, so you think it's horrific that is going on just down the road. But when my kids were growing up, of course, it was the time of bombs, bullets and barricades in Northern Ireland. So we had to know where they were. We couldn't let them go out and just go to a pub. You had to know exactly where. And I always dropped them off and I had to pick them up because it was necessary. And now we're in a different scenario where it is necessary that we warn our children and look after our children and in a way, prevent them walking home late at night in the dark somehow.
Is it prevent or just, you know, we shouldn't be made to feel as though we can't go in certain situations or walk across a common.
But it's not an ideal world, is it? That's the problem. It's like, it's not an ideal world. So you have to kind of deal with it the best that you can. But I also feel sorry for people with sons because it's almost like, you know, the vast majority of men are lovely and not going to hurt anybody, but they, you know, you don't want to also cover your sons with the blanket of like women are all going to feel threatened by you if you're walking down the street. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. But
sadly, Jane, the world has changed.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
But I just, you know, for Sarah Everard's parents are just, I mean, awful for them, and for anyone who's you know had a child disappear in this way. It's ghastly.
It's hard.